The spinal column is the source of the biochemistry. When he goes up like he is now, his back buckles. The vertebrae are crunching and collapsing, and it sends adrenaline to his brain. You'll notice I'm talking to his girth with the stick, not pulling on this chain. Don't bend into me. You all know from your experience, when he's looking out away from me and his ribs are bending into me, we better not have a sudden disturbance in this environment, or this horse is going to jump right on top of me. Who bends into whom is dominant. Already it's coming. Look at the shake and the release. Let's talk about what just happened with Thor. Horse I'd never met before, he'd never met me. We meet in a brand new environment. How unnatural is this for the horse? And the first thing a total stranger does in a strange environment is try and control the horse. I am not trying to control him. I am controlling how I respond to him. Go back to that sailing analogy. That is not just philosophy. That is a practical concept. I am not trying to control this horse. I'm not telling him what to do. I am telling him what not to do to me. A lot of my colleagues will say this: you must move the feet to be the boss. You heard this one? I disagree. You already have to be the boss to move the feet. If you're telling a creature it must do what you want, you better already be the boss. Do I have a right to walk up to your child and tell it what to do? This is how confusing our species is. We do this to our children and we're doing this to the animals. Here's a mixed message from parents. Respect adults. Just don't trust them. When you meet a stranger, remember your pleases and thank yous and yes ma'ams and no ma'ams, but don't get in a car and go away with them, and don't accept candy from them. I have no right to try and control him right now. What I have is a right to tell him, you don't come in here bending into me, dude. We both happen to find ourselves here in this stressful environment, and you're acting dominant bending into me. Get your ribs off of me. Get your ribs off of me. So I'm a horse standing on, he knows I'm not a horse. But look at my whip down nice and level and low. And every time he puts his ribs into me, I'm giving him a little nip. Right in the ribs, don't bend into me. It's starting to happen. Now when I straightened him, he didn't walk off. Don't bend into me. When he does walk off, notice how I go to the hip. If he bends into me, I'm going to the girth. If he's just walking off but not bending into me, then I'm going to his hip. Some of you right now say, my God, you're going around in those little circles. Don't you get dizzy? I'll say, here's another physiological response you've seen before. Your dogs do it. They will bend their spine and they will do a few circles to self-medicate and then lay down and sleep. By doing the turn on the forehand, I create a stretch and a bend in his spine that creates an endorphin release that calms him down. Look at the horse I have now. This is a different horse that came in here 10 minutes ago. He's not standing up and braced, full of adrenaline. He's getting better behaved about not bending into me. And when I touch him now for not bending into me, look at this, he's not getting indignant and walking off. And not once have I used this chain. But here's what he's experiencing. I just walked into a ring. The young lady that brought him in said, he's never been here before. And you saw, he came in going, whoa. I'm in a cage surrounded by predators. And I was just handed to a predator I don't know. Oh my God. I'm full of adrenaline. No, I need to calm down. Listen to the language our ancestors. This is getting worked up. We need to calm down. When he bends into me, he's bent out of shape. When he turns his head away from me or brings his head into me, he's getting his nose out of joint. I'm not going to stand in front of him to read his world until he respects me and trusts me enough to let me stand in front of him long enough to read his world. So here's also what our ancestors said. Don't put the cart before the horse. Don't put dressage before relaxation. Don't put reining before an authentic connection of respect and trust. Don't put trail riding ahead of a bond that is so powerful your horse knows that while we're out here on the trail, you can protect me. You have the power to protect me. Yeah, hello. What a good boy. No, don't rub. Be with me, but don't rub me. So there you just saw him want to plug finally instead of, oh my God, oh, you're okay. And you'll notice where he put his head. Predators, we all want to get face to face and kiss each other. He puts his head in my core. He's going to start yawning now. He put his head in my belly gently, because this is where the energy comes from. This is your chi. This is your life force. You'll notice when I was turning him, I stayed parallel. I never let the energy from my body go into his neck and head. Don't bend into me while you're down there. Good boy, bad boy, you cross that line. And as I spin him, I'm not pulling his face, my stick is pushing his hip, and I'm keeping my center parallel. We must have symmetry. For the English riders, it's a pas de deux all the time. For the drivers, we're a driving pair. We must be symmetrical or our energies are going to bump into each other. Now we're getting somewhere. His swirl is perfect. His whirl is right between the eyes, centered between the eyes. It's pretty symmetrical. It's splayed a little up and out. Average intelligence. Average ability to focus. That's the perfect swirl for most people. As I was saying earlier, if it rises above the eyes, so look at the pine. I still want to go, I need to move, but I also don't need to disrespect you, and I'm not quite sure what to do. I gotta go, but I don't want to go. I gotta go, but I don't want to go. Let's see what happens. Okay, we are girth to girth right now. We are line to line. So, I'm going to ask him to move. He either steps back or he walks forward and gets to turn on the forehead. Watch the whip come up to the corner of the mouth. Block. Just a gate into my space, just close. Good boy. Don't bend into me. Hey. Don't. And some people right now say, oh man, you're patient. Arabians were bred for endurance. I am not patient. That's the female yin version of what I'm doing. Here's the male version of what I'm doing. I am profoundly stubborn. Whenever a man says to me, man, I couldn't have that patience, I say, dude, just think of it as a competition of stubborn wills. Well, I can do that. Yeah, I'll do those turn on the forehands all damn day. Now that yeah, we're getting there, aren't we? We're getting there, aren't we? Look at the stress. How I'm responding to his challenges is allowing him to calm down. Let me ask you a question. If I take that chain and do this every time he goes to walk, is he going to